common skill, and I think the reason for that is the double back dismount has more potential for harder variations because you can get more swing, you can get more rotation, and it's much easier to spot your landing. Okay, and that's going to be the key problem with the double front dismount. It's going to be hard to get the aerial awareness of exactly where you are and open out at the right time to stick the landing consistently. So we'll be talking a bit about trying to optimize our power instead of maximizing it. Here's a demonstration of the skill. And like I said, it's not a very common skill, so I had a bit of trouble. Is that playing? Yeah, I had a bit of trouble actually finding a good demonstration of the skill. But you can see he barely even taps through the bottom. He's not really changing shape and accelerating, and he's still making it around really easily. So again, we're not looking to get a lot of power in this skill. So the basic swing mechanics, you've got that fixed axis, it's the bar. We're going to be rotating around that, so we've got a swing happening. In this case, it's going to be a front giant swing. When we get to horizontal on the back, we're looking to push away and spring from the bar. We're doing a rotation in the air. We're going to decrease our moment of inertia by tucking. And then at the end, we're going to be stretching out and increasing our moment of inertia to slow down our angular velocity before we land. Okay? And if we slow down our angular velocity, it's going to be easier for us to attenuate our forces. So the prerequisites, you should be able to do a good front giant swing. You should be able to do a front layout that goes above the bar height, okay, with good shape. And a double front on the trampoline is absolutely key because you need the aerial awareness of your skill to know where you are, especially if you want to make it consistent in competition so you can kick out right. Key coaching points I'd be looking for. Again, we're not looking for a lot of power, so moving your shoulders forward to accelerate your swing down isn't something I'd be recommending. Instead, I'd want my gymnasts to swing up towards handstand and use that as a control point to start their downswing. So they should feel their balance before they start. We want to be stretched out long and arching, pushing backwards on the bar on the way down. It's going to move our center of gravity away from the bar, help us to accelerate our downswing. When we get to about 30 to 45 degrees from the lower vertical, we're going to start dishing. It's going to put our posterior chain on stretch, ready to then kick into our arch again. And we're looking to release it about horizontal. I think it's really key here that you want your shoulders down and pushing backwards when that happens, because your shoulders will be down, heels will go up, it's going to make you rotate forward. And we're going to start the tucking motion when we get our legs to vertical. So you're going to let go, legs go up to vertical, then you're going to be doing the tuck. That's a bit of interpretive dance for you there. Okay, and then again, we're going to stretch out before we land. Not a very good dance. Okay, so here's a video of Harvey practicing a tap timer for this skill. And he's actually working on the Jaeger dismount here, so you can see he's dropping his heels a bit more than I'd like on that descending phase. But you still get a good idea for what we're looking for. And that's about that point of release, because if you release it about horizontal, we're going to get a lot of vertical height, okay? And that's going to allow us to have more time in the air to get our rotations done. And again, that means we'll be able to land with a little bit less rotation. We won't have as much angular velocity, easier to land. Physical preparation for this skill, I think it's important that you have bridge flexibility, because that shows that you've got full flexion of your shoulders and extension through your upper back, lower back and your hips. And the main muscles you're going to be using, you've got your deltoid working on that shoulder flexion, and because we're in supinated grip, we're actually going to be working the anterior deltoid a lot more. We're going to be working our upper trapezius for that shoulder elevation that you need to push down and to push long from the bar on the way down. We're also going to be working on the erector spinae, gluteals and hamstrings, which give us that kind of global extension. And here's a couple of drills we have to work on those. So this first one, you're mainly using your glutes, hamstrings and your lower back to lift up, but you can see he's got a stick in his hands and he's keeping that supinated grip, so you're also working shoulder flexion there. And you could load up that weight, so you could load up weight on the stick to make it a bit harder to do. Challenge your muscles more. Now here I actually made a mistake. He's actually got his hands flat down. It'd be better if he turned his hands up to supinate. That way it's going to be more specific to the skill that we're trying to work on. This next one. Okay, this next one, because he's at horizontal, when he actually gets his arms up to his ears, that's going to be the heaviest point for him. So it's really going to work that release point on the bar. Okay, and I'd actually want him looking at his hands without throwing his head back for this point. And here we're going from a stretch position now. Harvey, can you be ready to do your heel kicks? So we've got a stretch position through our abs and then tucking up very quickly, okay, to work on that double tuck position. then one that I didn't include here is just heel kicks, so hugging the box, and that's going from that dish under the bar, kicking up to horizontal. Okay. So the progressions I'd use, I'm going to take a bit of a no-frills approach here. I don't think you really need to do a whole lot of progressions for this skill. You should be able to do a layout front salt that over-rotates and you land on your chest, and that should be above bar height. That's the first thing you need, that's the first step. And then after that, you're going to start working on taps on loop bar. You can actually do this at the same time. So that previous video I had where Harvey was doing his tap timer on loop bar, that's something you should do a lot of with this skill. Because we're trying to get it as consistent as possible, the loop bar is going to allow you to do many, many repetitions without tearing up your hands and wearing yourself out. Then you take it to the pit and you do the double front salt into the pit. We'll talk a bit about making that step safe later on. After they can do it into the pit, you just build up some of the landing mats, make them a bit more firm, and then you can take it over to the real bar. Now, the key thing is, once you get it onto the real bar, I wouldn't do much more work into the pit with this skill, because you really want them getting a feel for where the floor is and when they have to open out, so that they can again land consistently in comp. Some of the safety considerations, when they're going for that skill and they're releasing, you'd want to be ready to put a mat in over the bar to stop them from hitting it if something goes wrong. If they do hit the bar, that's going to be a bit of a psychological problem for them, and it's going to make learning this skill and learning harder variations a bit more mature. If you wanted to spot this skill, you could do it from a spotting platform, and as they go up and they're releasing, one hand on their belly, one hand on their back, bit of a sandwich spot, you can give them a little bit of torque and push them away from the bar. And if you wanted to, you could do spotting cables as well with a harness, but I think that's a bit of overkill for this skill, unless you had trouble spotting for some reason or you didn't have the mats. Common errors. So first of all, we got the releasing to it. Actually, I might just go back for 1 second. And I forgot to show you a progression here. So this is the over rotation to your stomach. And again, this one's not quite ideal. You can see he's not quite tipping all the way over to his stomach, so I'd work on that a little bit more before you'd actually take it onto the next step of doing the double front salt. And common errors, you often see them tapping or releasing too early, and you get this kind of ragdoll effect. Flopping into the pit. So obviously you can see that he's fully stretched out and he's still rotating quite quickly. So you get a lot of rotation speed there, but you don't get much height. So when you land, you're going to have a lot of this movement backwards as well as rotation forward. It's going to be nearly impossible to land. So it's really important that, again, if that's happening, you need to take it back to the loop bar, work on the taps, maybe work on the timer onto your stomach again, and make sure they're getting the right release point. They need to be kicking and releasing at the time when the bar moves up. Thanks for that. So when the bar moves up, that's when they want to be trying to time their release. Okay. The other thing is tucking before release or moving your shoulders up. Okay. I think this one's an important point. If you start to tuck in, you're going to pull on the bar's going to pull back on you, and it's actually going to give you a bit of counter rotation. If you think about it and take that to its nth degree, you've got like a Yamawaki over the bar, which is complete counter rotation. So I think it's really important that you're trying to get the shoulders down, and I'd actually tell my gymnasts to look at their hand, because if you can see your hand, your chest, your chin's going to be upside, it's going to help you to keep that extension through your spine. Head down, you're going to roll out. And the blind landing. So the whole time we've been talking about trying to get it consistent. I'd be doing lots of double front salts from a trampoline onto hard surfaces, hard like mats still, but onto hard surfaces so they're getting used to the landing. I'd be doing lots and lots of timers trying to get it as consistent as possible, because really if you're going to compete this skill, it's going to be very hard to learn. And if it was my gymnast, I'd actually be starting to teach that half turn out so they can spot the floor earlier. It's going to be easier for them to stick. Okay? Hopefully you guys, I think that's it. Yeah. Hopefully you guys have learned a little bit about the double front salt and might consider teaching it to your gymnast. Again, it's not a very common skill, so it'll add a bit of variety to gymnastics, which is, I think, something we can all agree with. Okay? Thank you.